Welcome back to class, everybody. I am Ethan from the Weebology podcast.
And I am your spent Professor Ricky.
Oh, you spent?
I'm a little spent.
What for?
It's a lot of work shit.
How come?
Because it's everyone wants to get they want to get their shit done before the end of the year. So they have me, the developer, the keyboard, hands, brain on a stick, just getting shit done, thinking I don't want to have my own time off. I want time.
How does?
How does? Hey, you just told me before we started that you are taking a bit of a sweet Christmas vacay in a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much the rest of the year off.
Really, really fucking jealous of that, my dude. But this is my own doing because I've
taken off a lot of time this year. So
I know, that's what I'm saying. I took a lot of time off in the summer to go hang out at a very touristy beach in the southeast. Anyone who lives around here knows exactly what beach that might be. But I'm not going to dox our asses. Not going to do it. Getting better about that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so it's going to be a hard crunch to the end of the year. But I'm going to work from home so I can watch anime.
AKA not do anything.
Exactly.
Very cool.
So I'm going to go to the office tomorrow, or I guess for you listeners, today. Going to go to the office on that Monday. Take those weird gifts if you are part of our Patreon and listening to the syllabus sidebar, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you want to hear what we're talking about, $3 and up gets you on that syllabus sidebar. But we were talking about how my company's been giving me weird Christmas gifts, and I'm kind of a little over it, frankly.
Very weird.
I'm done with it. Hopefully this last final stretch of gifts that they give are going to be absolute bangers. But
you're going to get a brand new iPod Touch.
A brand new iPod Touch.
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about the iPods in a hot minute.
We were talking about it yesterday. We had a high school reunion of sorts last night.
We did. I thought there were going to be more people from the high school than were there.
As well, for sure.
But I got to see some people I haven't seen in a while, and everyone didn't recognize who I was, which was very weird.
It's the flow.
It was. Even the parents, we were at a wedding, and the parents of the groom didn't recognize who I was either until I said my name.
I'm going to be just $150 with y'all. When he walked up to me, I didn't recognize him.
And I see him twice a week.
It's
minimum.
I mean... it was unreal. It was the flow. I honestly hadn't realized how long your hair had gotten.
Right.
I swear to God, it's doubled in length since yesterday.
When I hit the suit, I think it was different.
When I hit the suit.
Yeah. When I hit the suit, it was definitely different.
And he came from like a weird location, and I was expecting everyone that was visiting to come from one location. And he came from the exact opposite.
I came from the parking lot.
The other parking lot.
It was the only parking spot I could find. I rolled in, I rolled up, and I was feeling good, feeling fresh. But like everyone did not know who. They're like, who the fuck is this rando? Do you even go here? Are you even part of this?
Legitimately sort of what happened.
But that's another affirmation that I learned, that the flow is a go. That I was thinking about cutting it for this coming summer, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'm going to keep this flow going. It's a flow go, and I'm a go.
It's definitely an interesting spot you're in right now, because you can do a lot with your hair. You could
I could tweak it up. I
could go full fades on the side, and then try to do something like interesting with your hair.
But you need, the statue of David required a block of marble, and this is my marble.
Well, exactly, right. You can't make a cool hairstyle when you're like shaved your head, right?
Exactly. You have to do the work.
Hair to get something done.
Exactly. So maybe the students will see some different hairstyles as I experiment with it. But for now,
yeah, I mean, if it's my opinion, I think we should see a Viking braid, like you shave both sides, but then you go like Viking braid up, on the long top.
That's a hot take. That might be something worth doing. But regardless of whatever hairstyle I go with, the grow is a go. Like, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna keep growing. Like, I'm gonna see what happens.
I mean, at what point are you gonna like do something to not look like an absolute bum at your desk?
It's funny you say that, because one of my clients actually really vibed with the hair.
What?
Yes, but one of my clients, it's not really a doxing move at all, but like one of my clients was Cliff Bar. And they're a bunch of like hip-tastic, and they're some of the best people to work with. And like, they were just like I really like, even one guy in a Zoom meeting was like, I really like your flow, dude. And I'm like, bro, what's good?
I like the lettuce.
I like the lettuce. You have a sweet salad going on upstairs. I like this. So it definitely will be played with in 2021. That'll be my initiative, is to see what I can do with this hair. But before we even get to 2021,
what the hair do?
Before we even get to that year, we're still in this one.
We sure are.
But we want to talk about a show that kind of like basically was the foundation of an entire genre as we know it in 2020. And I want to talk about Sword Art Online.
Yeah.
Oh my God. This is something we probably haven't we haven't talked about even a little bit.
We've mentioned it a few times, but we haven't like done any real conversations related to this.
And this is something that we're basically gonna talk about the show, everything before Alicization, because I think we still both have to give that its justice.
Yeah.
But I think we've watched. Have you watched the full season 1 both parts and the Gun one?
I started Gun Gale, didn't like it.
Okay.
But I did watch all of season 1, if you want to call it that, of
it's 2 parts and
Sword Art Online.
Yeah. So this is a show that came out in 2012 by A1 Pictures, who has quite the accolade of shows of real bangers: Fairy Tail, Promised Neverland, Blue Exorcist, and they have a real rap sheet of coming out with some serious banger shows. But this show is not just a banger, it truly was genre defying as we know it in this decade. And it's worth talking about because to this day, I still don't understand why it was as instrumental as it was. As much as I liked it, I really did. And I vibe with the hype, but it was instrumental for a reason I have yet to talk about.
Yeah. kind of a little background here. Yeah. I never had watched it until we started a podcast, obviously.
Really?
And about, at this point, probably close to 6 months ago, I watched it.
Okay. So I watched
literally it for this reason, so that we could talk about it.
I watched it in college. I watched it kind of, not when it came out, but like a couple years after it did. So I watched it when it was in peak hype. Right. Yeah, when people were chatting about it online, the forums were lit with everyone saying this is the new thing, and watched it, and I fell into the hype. I really enjoyed that first season. Part 1. I want to get into that part 2 a little later, but the initial drop, I was really into it, and I never really gave it, again, kind of like Overlord, I didn't give it the Professor's Eye until I rewatched it. Like you said, it wasn't 6 months. It was actually like right when we started the podcast. I rewatched it then just to like, it's on, Alicization's coming out, want to give it the due diligence. And I rewatched it, I'm like, this still doesn't feel like something that should have been as pivotal as it was. But it was.
Yeah, I think, honestly, what probably happened was you had watched it. It was the first show that did a lot of these tropes, and then ever since you've watched a lot of shows that sort of use the same tropes. Yeah, tropes. Wow, that was unbelievable.
Trosh.
Absolute mess. No, but you watch a lot of shows that use those tropes, and then you go back and you watch, and because you've seen a lot of shows do similar things at that point, you're like, well, maybe this wasn't so good.
I was at a place where
it's sort of like, sorry, really fast. The kind of thing that happens to Dragon Ball Z is everyone gives it so much shit, and it's like, you got to remember, it's one of the progenitors of a lot of these tropes.
They were the Shonen OG boys.
Yeah, so
that's what it was.
Everyone gives them a lot of shit, and I'm like, dogs, without, DBZ, you wouldn't think of it as a common thing.
Right, and it's only when you double back that you feel like, okay, this feels stale. But I did double back with that knowledge, I think, of, okay, this is the show that did the Isekai modern style first. Like, they were the ones to really rip this off. And there are a number of things I want to talk about with those tropes that, if they had done it different, would the Isekai space be different as we know it, right? I think if they were paving the way, looking back, I'm kind of looking at it through the lens of I wish they would have done X different to make paving this trope different. 10,000 feet. For those...
Well, so the truth is that World Trigger was the first one, right?
Yeah, I think it was. It was like 2010 or 11.
I'm looking it up really
Okay,
fast.
cool. Well, I'll give everyone the 10,000 foot as you look that up. This show, Sword Art Online, was about a boy named Kirito who was a beta tester in a video game, VR video game. Fun fact, that takes place in 2022. So we're gonna hit that Back to the Future situation where we approach the year that is quote unquote the future, right? So
super hype.
Yeah, we'll see what happens if we actually get a game like Sword Art Online. But basically, everyone who jumps in to the game on real launch, the creator basically said, "Haha, you're fucked. If you take off the helmet in the real world, I'm going to use microwaves to fry your brain. Everyone is trapped in the game. If you die in the game, you die for real, and I'll kill you in the real world." Whoa, that's crazy. But Kirito had a little bit of an advantage. Being a beta tester, he knew the mechanics. He already had a little bit of leveling up. He knew what he had to do. He is one of the few original...
Sorry, I meant Log Horizon. I did not mean World Trigger.
Okay. But I think Log Horizon came out later than Sword Art Online. I think they did the work after to make it like, I don't know, like a...
It says 2013. Is that after?
Yes, that's after. So it was a direct response almost. Log Horizon was one of those shows that wanted to capitalize very heavily on this space. Like, they really were like, whoa, Sword Art Online is fucking crazy and it's making buku dollars. Let's jump on it. And they jumped on it hard, like horde. And they kind of like went in on the game mechanic aspect. And I think that made them stand out amongst the rest.
Right.
But this show, I mean, it really did, getting the elephant in the room out, it was the progenitor of this space, but it spawned so many bullshit, awful shows. Like, really bad shows.
Okay. Yeah, but first let's do the quick little rundown.
Yep.
Like the super general summary.
I gave him a little bit. You give him more.
Yeah. So it's a game company comes out with this game. Everyone's super into it. They're doing VR where you're connected.
All five senses and whatever. Yeah.
And other stuff.
Other stuff.
Our main character Kirito was a beta tester of the game. They had shown up to like level 10 or something, but this goes all the way up to level 100.
Right.
And the very first day of opening, there's like 4 million players or something.
And they're all like in the same city, right? They start there, right?
Right. So the Genesis City or whatever it's called.
Sure. And
then everyone's trying to log out and they can't, and they're all freaking out. And then all of a sudden, the creator Akihiko Kayuba,
that's it. Yes, I totally forgot his name. Yeah.
I didn't, because I thought it was such a sick name.
It was
like such an unbelievably cool name. But yeah, so he kind of comes over the loudspeaker, whatever you want to call it, and says, basically, bitches, you're stuck in my game. Get to level 100 or you're screwed. Also, you can't leave. If you die in here, you die, like you said.
I'll literally melt your brain.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally going to be fucked.
And so it starts off in one of those situations like I think the Attack on Titan show or like the Promised Neverland show, where you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a fun little game, show. And, they're just going to, chill with their friends after school or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
But, you find out, no, this is real. And then there's scenes of people like killing themselves to test them and actually dying. They show you real world news stories saying like literally 4 million people are stuck in this game. 400,000 have already died, that kind of thing.
And the real world's freaking out. I think what you just said was very important, but we have to look at it through a 2012 lens. There has not been a show up to this point that even thought about doing this shit. Like, not even a little bit. So you have to look at it from the frame of a 2012 audience of like, wow, this is actually pretty dark and dire. Like, you're stuck here, and people dying and killing themselves to test this theory is kind of a big deal. And there's like news stories of like parents trying to pull that shit off their heads.
Yeah.
And they get their brain fried, and they're literally, they kill their kids. So like, that is something that hadn't been touched on up to that point. And if it was, in a way that hadn't been so refined. So I think this is, from that perspective, this is a very important premise to have in the 20 teens, because, again, so many shows were born from this concept in general.
Almost like thinking about it now makes me want to go rewatch the first half of season 1.
Yes.
Like, it was an absolute masterpiece, like I think, up to halfway, and they fucked it up heavy.
Okay, I know exactly.
And we can talk about all the bad shit
in
a couple minutes.
But
I really want to talk about some of the cool stuff.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So first of all, this world is really interesting and really like well fleshed out for the first half. I would say between floors like 1 and 20 were pretty cool.
They really did the due diligence of making it feel that each floor was its own landscape. Like, it really is like the world has verticality, both physically and metaphorically, because you didn't know what existed on 430. Kind of the best way to go about it is,
it's like Made in Abyss, but up.
Right. Actually, yes, that's a really way to put it, because you hit like 426 halfway through the first part of season 1, and it's probably involved in the part we don't like, but having this floor in the middle of 100 that is like the most habitable, like it's the one you want to live in, like long term, is a very fascinating concept to me, because
it's going to be interesting, because I know what you mean, and that's not the part I didn't like.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we will get into it, but I mean, like, that, like,
this is so interesting.
Yes.
My interest has been piqued, Pikachu.
Pika. But the floors like 1 through 15 are like hospitable as fuck. Like they're not like able to be lived on. Like, they're battlegrounds. But like, you hit like floors like 22 to 26, they're all just like lush landscapes and have like beautiful towns in them. And it's like, yeah, this is where you come to live. And people kind of, after years of living in the game, it's a fascinating concept, because people have made their own societies within the game and their own towns. And, it's just kind of like, we have to be here, might as well live here peacefully, right? So
yeah, so it's an interesting scenario. It is like a psychology thing, where sort of like a Stockholm syndrome.
Yes,
where
very much.
They kind of like give up all hope of ever escaping this game, this captor of theirs.
Might as well just.
And so they try to make the best of their lives there.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like you said, there's battleground kind of floors, and then there's kind of like the rest floors, and that's pretty common in other anime that you can see now, like Danmachi. That happens where there'll be like a rest floor.
You texted me that, hey, have you watched Danmachi yet? And I'm like, no, not yet. But
well, I mean, this isn't like world breaking,
right? No, but no.
I think it does occasionally show up in like a Solo Leveling, or like a what's that other freaking show?
Slime.
Well, shit. Even Made in Abyss, as she goes down, there's like certain little areas that are like kind of off limits to the Abyss curse or whatever.
People have found in Made in Abyss places to live within like the 4th or 5th level, like down. Right. Yeah. So and I like the idea of a world with that kind of physical vertical mobility, whether it's down or up. And we've seen it in other shows, Made in Abyss, Tower of God. There are a lot of interesting shows that use that physicality of the world that they live in, or at least what they're trying to traverse through, to kind of, even Hunter x Hunter did it with was it Heaven's Tower or the Battle Tower?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they did the same shit. And that is very fascinating when you strap a whole world around it. And Hunter x Hunter came out in 2011. Well, way earlier than that, but the one that everyone really knows is 2011. But, this show did a lot of shit so right that it's replicatable ad nauseum. Like, people have been literally churning out shit that was paved by Sword Art Online. And before we leave the shit that is good, I think the other thing they did is they built the blueprints, the framework for what an OPMC looks like. They really did, to me. You know, the other show that did it, 2016 season 1, One Punch Man, really did that same way, but One has always been good at that because he made Mob Psycho 100 as well. But I think that the author made a show where you felt you can insert yourself into the main character for better or worse. Because Kirito, and it's kind of getting into the stuff I'm not a big fan of, he didn't have a personality at all, in my opinion. At all. He was just a blank slate. But the good part about that is I felt I could, you know, gain that kind of power fantasy, that getting drunk on another character's power a little bit and just kind of like inserting myself into that in that spot. So I don't know. I think they were the ones who did that first in a way that is makes the viewer insertable in that space. I don't know.
Definitely good for power fantasy. I don't know. I'm having a hard time remembering like what I really thought of his personality.
The fact you can't remember much is telling.
It was 6 months ago. It's not that insane.
I know, but that's telling because he has nothing there, in my opinion. There's nothing. I mean, when
he comes out of his, coma, he gets a personality. Like, I
guess in the real world, yeah, but okay, fair.
We're just gonna skip over that for a second, and then we're gonna talk about like some of the cool things I thought that they did amazingly well.
Okay.
For instance, I think in the beginning where they had been stuck in the game for like a year or something at that point, and no one had progressed past a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's these hard stuck levels where people would get stuck.
Yeah.
They had these they called it a big meeting together with all the top level players at that point. And they're like, literally, we need to figure out how we're going to beat this level because we can't be stuck here for 2 years,
Right.
That was one of the coolest parts about the early season.
Like a forced congregation of players.
Right, because they were literally like a year or something in the game, and they're stuck at floor 20.
Right. And I wonder if the way that it was written was really cool because some, like you mentioned, had resigned themselves to live there for the rest of their lives. But the ones that were still fighting were all they had to work with. So they had to come together. They had to say, what the fuck are we going to do about this level? And it's not going to be something any one of us could do. We need to team up. So I like that sense of camaraderie by force. It's a really cool thing.
It was cool, but it really it brought most of the important characters to us early.
Yeah.
But it also, that kind of thing paved the way for later in the season where there's guilds being formed and all these groups being formed. If you really think about how the show worked, it was complete chaos up until that point.
Right.
And then from that point forward where they just started really progressing and they had that, I don't know what they call it, the assault force or something.
I think it was assault force.
They had a forward force that was actually trying to clear levels, and then all the people behind it would slowly climb up behind them.
Yeah.
And that actual concept is used in a lot of other isekais as well.
I truly think, I wonder if solo leveling took a little bit of this bait, because it really,
definitely.
I think
Danmachi 100% did.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it is asking to be refined, but the fact that Sword Art Online basically propagated
pioneered it.
Yeah, they pioneered it. So you have to look at it from that perspective that this wasn't a refinement. This was the creation of the modern isekai. And it's very fascinating. I think I never thought about the whole guild concept being a necessity. It was something that was born of, if we don't make this guild, we're never getting out of here. Ever.
Right, and it's just funny because a lot of the guilds do or care about different things, and I think if you're locked in a game for 4 years or whatever, it's bound to happen that there'd be certain people that are like, you know what, we're never getting out of here. Let's just make sure we're good at fishing, and let's make the best of it. Or you'd have the thief guild, or you'd have the attack guild.
Right, and I wonder if this is kind of, I don't know, maybe we're putting more meaning on the narrative than the original author meant to, but something tells me it's not the case. But maybe it's a commentary on this camaraderie is an inevitability in these situations, right? When you're
100%.
pure
psychology.
It's pure psychology. Like when you're in a situation where we need to get something fucking done, we need to team up. Like, and some people team up.
And you're gonna have those leaders though that emerge.
Yes, but like almost what you said is more important, that everyone wasn't teaming up to get the fuck out. They were teaming up. Some of them were fishing or building or craftsmen of weapons for those who do want to get out. And it's a camaraderie that is either born of a objective that everyone feels needs to happen, or they have given up and just kind of made their own objective in another capacity. Right. So
I liked
it's really cool.
The fact that early on when they all teamed up to do the first major floor or whatever, the first thing after that team up.
Yeah.
Kirito was like, well, I only play by myself, essentially, like that solo player.
Exactly.
Then he joins their team for a minute. Then he has the opportunity to like legitimately join their squad.
Yeah.
And he's like, nah, I'm gonna go on my own. And he makes himself like sort of this like weird enemy type thing, as like he called himself like essentially a false ranker beta player. I can't remember what they called him. There's like an actual term.
I think it was like a beta cheater or something like that. It was like
a beater. That's right.
A beater.
They, like,
a beater. That's it. Yeah.
And so yeah, he calls himself a beater and gives himself like this basically target on his back. But then he progresses so fast and becomes so powerful that they still have to call on him.
Yeah.
Like they still put him on that attack team.
Right.
And he has to be there to clear levels, or else
they're never gonna get it. They're never gonna get it done. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I love that part of it, and that's a little bit of the power fantasy, I guess you would say, is like he's doing it all on his own, but then they still need him.
Yeah, like you are on. You're definitely essential to the world around you, but you are actively denying being part of it. Like he's clearly like, I'm my own man, like I'm my own dude, and he can say that all day, but like they're gonna still calling him and give him accolades and cash and whatever, and just sucking that D, whatever he needs, you're gonna give it to him. They're gonna give it to him because they need him to be there, right? I think that starts to bleed into what I'm not the biggest fan of the show, but for what it is, what they pioneered is here to stay. They are the OGs. I wonder if that's for better or worse. Do you think what they pioneered is entertaining almost 10 years later? To me, maybe not.
I watched it and I was entertained.
Right,
so.
but they're the OGs. I mean, of course, it's going to be entertaining when you watch their perspective, but when it's been recycled time and time and again.
To be honest with you, watch Don Machi and you'll see. Like it is, they obviously add a few more flavors to it, but it's very similar in the early season vibe.
And you still vibe with it.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the thing, right? Is that does this formula hold up nearly a decade after its release? And given the amount of times it's been regurgitated and added with, like you said, more flavors or just kind of refined in certain areas, yes, clearly it is still good to go. I mean, how many isekais have we taught? How many isekais have I shoved down my gullet?
Right.
It's not like it's not a working formula, but I would argue that if you look back and if you were to have known that this is the show that would pioneer an entire genre in anime, what would you change? What would be something you would not be a fan of looking back? And I think this is a good time to get into the stuff we're not a big fan of this show.
Sure.
Unless you had more to celebrate of this show. I think A1 Pictures did a great job animation-wise. I'm an animation boy, all things considered. But
yeah, I mean, it's cool. I think a lot of the powers are cool. I think
the double sword reveal was fucking rad.
Like, yeah, his ability to do things that you're not allowed to normally do is cool.
Like when you kind of like tweak the system, always a good trope.
100%.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cool stuff, and I mean, we can totally move into some of the stuff that we don't like because I think we're gonna circle back and say, I like this part, I didn't like this part, yada yada. So
right.
Anyway, the number one thing that I didn't like, and it'll sort of play on some part I did like and you didn't. Okay, I think that the relationship between Asuna and Kirito was actually pretty solid.
Whoa!
It was organic. It was over literally 20 episodes.
Whoa! Okay, so I agree on a very surface level. Yes, the relationship was organic as fuck, and I'm into it. But don't give me a 4 to 6 episode romantic stopping of action in the middle of what could arguably be the best season of Isekai ever. They literally that.
Yeah. So what I think actually was going on there, is even they were starting to not believe they could finish the game, and so then they're like, okay, maybe we should make an effort to live in the game.
That is what I was willing to accept at the time of watching. I was willing to accept that was the reason, like, okay, we're never going to be able to get the hell out of here. But if you remember, they had just come off of a hard victory from that.
Yeah,
and
but
that spurred them. That spurred them
78 floors above.
Sure, but they'd still spurred them to actually. I thought they went down to live. I thought they had.
Yeah, they moved down to 68.
Yeah. And like, man, like they were the force. They were the ones driving the way through these 100 levels, and off the heels of a fantastic victory, I think he even had his double swords at the time. I don't quite remember that. Don't quote me on that one. But they were just hot off of victory. And in my mind, when I'm watching, like, they can fucking clock this. They got this. And they stopped. Everything just went to a romance slice of life in an isekai anime. And I'm like, this pacing feels very strange to me. I'm not into this. But it did feel organic. I will give you that. It felt very, of all of the romances I've seen.
Well, I'm just saying, if it took 20 episodes for them to fall in love and, like, become a thing,
yeah,
that is much better paced, in my opinion, than, like, a Rent-A-Girlfriend, where the first episode, he's already madly in love with 6 girls, you know what I mean?
Or
like,
fucking Rachel in, like, Tower of God or something like shit like that. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
There was reasons why they could fall in love, right?
Right.
And I think that's extremely important in shows where, you know, they want to make romance a factor, but if it's not realistic in any freaking sense, it's really just like pure bait, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think there are precedents in the real world of people who have met and kind of fall in love and, you know, have these romantic relationships from video games being the catalyst of those relationships. So this is something I feel a lot of people could probably vibe on. But like I said, there's something about the pacing with the way they pivot from this main storyline, the main objective.
Dude, I forgot.
What do you mean?
Remember they get, when they get,
a kid?
No, well, that's the absolute worst part of this whole show.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second, for sure.
And when he comes up and he stops them from leaving, the Akihiko Kaiba.
Yes.
He makes them all use their actual faces.
Yes.
And so he knew that Asuna looked like she did.
Right.
And he looked like he did, right?
Yeah.
And then because I was thinking to myself, well, what if like she had turned out to be a dude the whole time?
That would have been actually super funny.
Yeah, but she, you know, was straight up. She used her like actual face and name.
I mean,
which is weird.
It's bold. And again,
but it was just interesting.
Very 2012 of them, right? I wouldn't use that shit.
Well, not now. You'd be cyberbullied to hell.
You'd be doxed to shit.
Yeah.
Easy. But yeah, that's an interesting point. I found it very weird. The just the characters in all of this, like, they seem very capable. But that capability was both good and bad. Asuna was like a capable female semi-pro tag, and I'm like, I'm so here for that, because a lot of females in anime kind of get a bad rap.
Right. She absolutely holds her own.
Oh, yeah. She could slay.
She, frankly, is like the second strongest person in the whole game.
Pretty much. She's up there in the top 3 for damn sure.
Right.
But the downside is that Kirito seems so powerful, And that's not always a bad thing. Like, Misfit, One Punch Man, Mob Psycho, all of these OP characters, they all seem to have like I've mentioned it in other episodes before. If you're going to have an OPMC, make sure they have problems that their OPness, Jackie OPness, can't solve, right? Misfit, their own history. One Punch Man, their inability to feel excited anymore and their lack of humanity. Mob Psycho trying to, grow without the use of his powers, his godly powers. But Kirito doesn't seem to have that at all. Everything he is and everything he needs to solve can be solved with his OPness. Just saying.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, pretty much.
And I don't know how to alleviate that.
And
right?
the whole world needs him, or else they can't progress at all.
Exactly. It's not only the problems that he needs to solve can be solved easily with his powers, but everyone else's problems can be solved just as easily with his own powers. There's nothing he can't do, and the stakes don't provide him with anything that really provides conflict. I think at a certain point.
Though it didn't feel like he was just walking through. Like, it definitely felt like it wasn't easy for him.
I guess so.
But also he
That's
never
fair.
failed. So
right.
It's kind of hard to like put those two things together. I think some of his failures happened later in the season.
Yes.
And then you start feeling like, okay, this guy's like an actual just kid,
And that got even worse than Gun Season. Like when he was a girl in the
was
Gun.
that was him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not Gun Gale Online. It was season 2 where he was a chick. He had the black long hair. He didn't actually fight with a gun. He felt with a pistol and like a lightsaber essentially. But
because Gun Gale Online is that girl and the little girl in
the little girl in the pink hat. Yeah. I actually kind of like that season a little bit more. It felt more of a spinoff than anything else, but we'll get there. I don't know. It's just like the world was there to service him. And that's a little disturbing.
And service him, it did.
In troves. He was good to go. Like, there was nothing he couldn't do. And I think what you said was actually the most important. He never experienced failure. And I never saw a good example of the contrary would be Asta and Black Clover. He is, like, when his arms were fucked up, he experienced in a situation where he could never achieve his dreams and still drove past it, right?
Well, I think it's honestly something that I get frustrated with is like your protag not taking battle damage.
There it is. Yeah.
And that was a major problem after like honestly 5 to 10 episodes.
What was that fight in the bridge where like literally he was getting struck by an entire team of people?
He literally said, I heal more than you can even DPS me.
Right.
And he literally stands there and doesn't do anything. He's like, good luck, keep shooting.
You're never gonna
keep stabbing.
You're never gonna do it, yeah.
And they literally just stand there for 5 minutes, literally get like lose all their mana or whatever because they've been just swinging at him stamina.
Right.
And then he's like, yeah,
nice try, but
I mean that was definitely like a cool ass moment. You're like, damn, he is a badass.
And that's where it goes into the whole power fantasy thing, right? Like, I mean,
100%.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's what you're here for. And I think people in 2012 didn't have anything like that up to this point. There was none of that, right? This was, you may have had it with Goku, you may have had it with Luffy, you had, and even with like Naruto and Sasuke, you had the big three up to that point. You had your power fantasies, but not in a distilled way like Sword Art Online gave you. And you were kind of, taken aback by feeling that power, right? You're feeling like I could put myself in his shoes. Yes, I can heal faster than you can even damage me. What a fantasy to live. Right.
I mean, it's sort of like the opposite of One Punch Man. I can punch anyone once and they'll explode,
Done. Just absolutely done.
Absolute defense.
But looking back, I think it feels stale from a hindsight perspective. But you got to think of it like a 2020 person looking at it from 2012. Like, yeah. We're here, but it was then. And it was so good then that we're still seeing the effects to this day. And I don't know if it deserved to be the classic that it was or the progenitor that it was, but I think it was so fresh then. it couldn't help but be anything else, right?
Yeah. Okay, so really bad shit about it.
Let's hit it.
The kid that they have together is the world's worst thing of all
She was
time.
a program, right?
Yeah, just a random. I think it was like almost an administrator or something.
Yeah, she was like a glitch or some kind of piece of code, right? You got
like almost like a firewall.
Yeah. And she was just like, I've taken on lolly form. Can I be your child? And they're like, yeah.
The fucking worst. Can we just talk about this really fast?
Yeah.
The worst.
It was weird as fuck. And she asked to be their kid.
Come on with that.
And
dude.
Come
on.
Serendipitously, after they decided to bang a little bit, they're like, let's have a child. Oh, wait, the game provided one. Here we are.
Just absolutely terrible.
It was
just a complete mess.
Not a good addition at all. Did she have any merit in the overall objective of making it to the level 100? I can't remember.
She starts hacking shit later on.
That's right.
Giving them admin access and stuff.
Yeah, because he fought Heathcliff, who was kind of tweaking with the game a little bit, right?
Let's just wait for a bit on
that. Okay.
I mean, we're only 41 minutes in.
Only 41 minutes in.
So that was just awful. I thought, I think the biggest issue for me is their actual children. Like,
oh yeah,
like even in real life, like they've been in the game for 4 years and they're still like 16.
Yeah. Wait, was there a time displacement aspect to all this? Did they ever explain any of that?
What do you mean?
Well, they've been in it for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Is it 4 years in the real world or 4 years perceptually? Like,
it was definitely a lot of like actual years. It might have only been 2 years. I don't know. I'm literally making up a time.
Sure. I think it was only 2 years.
Fair.
But still, to the point, shouldn't they have aged at all? A little bit in the real world, which they did not?
Well, they had long hair and shit. You have no clue what they looked like before, really.
Fair. That's fair.
Anyway, so terrible though. They're actual like 14-year-olds, and they're like, we're in love. We've been together for. I swear to God, they said like years and years.
I'd believe it. Like, I don't remember the time frame, but it was more than a couple years. Like, all things considered.
Maybe it was like 10 years in the game equated to 2 years outside.
I think there was a time displacement.
There's gotta be something.
There's some kind of thing there. They're gonna microwave their brains after all. But fuck.
But they acted like, we've been in love for so long. We've been married for so long. We gotta raise this child, and then they're like letting it call him mommy and daddy, and it was honestly creepy as shit.
Man, we're already over 40 minutes and we're gonna go off on this shit. We're gonna go in on this shit.
I mean, come on.
Season 1, Part 2, the Elf arc. Fuck that shit straight up.
Well, one last thing that I thought that was really cool, since we're just going into it.
Let's go in. Yeah, go. Hit it.
Thing I think was pretty cool.
I love that. I love the idea of that. Yeah.
It was Akihiko Kaiba was the leader of the Crimson Lancers or whatever the fuck.
And naturally, that if you're the creator of your game, you're going to insert yourself in a way that's meaningful, right?
Right. And it's similar to like arsonists. When they burn down a house, they always come back to look at it. Like,
that's what
to get
this
their
was.
jimmies off.
Yeah. To rustle their own jimmies.
That's literally what they do.
100%.
They like jerking their gherkin to their burned remains of houses.
I did find it a little cool that Kirito was so good at the game that he can recognize a glitch when it happened.
He didn't. That was the dumbest part.
Well, no, he did when he noticed that he moved so fast that this is not possible with the mechanics that I know. Like,
but then he still didn't do anything about it for the next 2 years, essentially.
Yeah, and then he finally came back and hacked his ass back.
Right, but they basically, at one point, Heathcliff comes to him and says, you need to join my group. And he's like, nah, fam, I refuse.
I'm good. Yeah. And
he's like, okay, if you beat me, then you don't have to join, and Asuna can leave. But if I beat you, you have to join.
Right. And yeah,
it was like obvious to me as a viewer that this guy was fucking hacking.
Yeah.
This guy's hacking. I swear to God, he's lag switching.
But
I swear,
he's lag switching. But there was a moment where he noticed that his shield moved way faster than should have been fucking possible.
Dog shit about it.
He didn't for a while, but then he finally locked in and did something about this shit. Yeah. So yes, but okay.
But I just thought it was really cool. The whole Heathcliff.
That was very cool.
Whatever you want to call it.
The fight.
Switcheroo.
Yeah.
Reveal.
Yeah, reveal. There it is.
My God, I was like, switcheroo. That's the worst way to put that.
We're not linguisties. But speaking of all the shit we're not a fan of, that entire second half of that, I guess season 1, that elf arc with his own sister.
Who, like, Def wanted to bang him.
Come on, man.
She's crying because I freaking loved you and
yeah, how dare you do this to me? I'm like, I'm just playing the fucking game. What do you want from me?
And like, honestly, like, how did they think that was okay to put in a freaking show?
Well, hold on. There's a lot of shows that play off this kind of shit. There really are. Like, their entire show's Aramanga Sensei was literally based around that sibling fuckery.
Yeah, but maybe that was like the first time it's been sibling fuckery going on.
So you think they're the progenitor of that shit as well?
I don't
think so.
I doubt it.
I don't think so.
Japanese are freaky deaky.
But all things considered,
what on earth could they possibly have thought was going to go good from that?
Nothing. And what's funny about thinking back, you and I have talked just now for nearly 45 minutes about the first half of that season. Can you remember anything that happened in that second half?
Yeah, I actually remember a lot of it.
Do you really? I don't.
Obviously, that's the most recent thing I've watched.
It's not. It just isn't memorable to me. Like, there's not a lot memorable there. There are a couple dope battles in there somewhere, but outside of that,
here's my big problem.
What you got?
How in the living fuck did they get the ability to create a second game after the first one caused 4 million people to get stuck in a game? No government on earth would allow that to happen.
Ethan, you bring up a very, very astute point.
There is no
that is really good thing.
No shot.
Literally a 4 million person, I don't know, terrorist plot.
Legitimately.
On an electronic proportion internationally, and somehow they gave, I guess they used all the funding from people buying the first game to build the second game.
Unbelievable.
And it just seamlessly transitioned into Asuma being the victim again.
Basically, that, honestly,
the antagonist
whole second arc was just like,
yeah,
like the most disgusting fantasy you could ever have.
The antagonist was bullshit. It literally was, she's in a coma, but I want to marry her, so I'm going to lock her up. I'm going to sleep with her at some point, and you can't do anything about it. And Kirito's like, hold my fucking beer because I was the savior of the last arc. You're fucked.
Yeah.
I'm going to come in on this real quick. So
I felt contrived and it was just like kind of slapped on the end, bolted on.
Right.
And I think was a much worse show as a result of that.
And that really is a sticking point for me. I actually really enjoyed the Gun season, the second season. I enjoyed it. There were problems with it, but the piece that is worth talking about the most is that first half of that first season, because it really did all the work.
Yeah,
right?
And I really think it was an absolute masterpiece, frankly.
Yeah.
Like,
it
a
really
lot
was.
of the stuff they did, I thought was great. If we had spent more time exploring the floors and like actually beating floor bosses, I would have been much happier.
In my opinion, you probably could have had the concept of the first season, first part, be 3 seasons in and of itself, right? You could have
easily.
Like if you would have fleshed out the floors more, made them wider, made them more robust, I think you really could have
spent time with the attack force, spent time with different guilds. I really think they should have taken the second half, chopped all that off. You can still have the relationship love thing,
sure,
where they're pulled away from the front lines. Don't bring the kid into it at all.
Yeah.
Then you literally just finish the rest of the season dealing with getting up to floor 100.
Yeah.
Then floor 100, the attack team, literally the 3 of them walk in the door, or the 5 of them walk in the door. And then Heathcliff turns around and he's like, "Welcome to my fucking dojo, pussies."
Oh, what?
And you're like, "What, dude?
What
and
the
he's like,
fuck?"
Yeah, so I'm it.
This is my floor. It is literally mine. So here's what I want to do. I want us to rate the first half of season 1 and the second half of season 1.
Okay.
What do you think the first half of season 1 is worth to you?
A 99.
99.
It was fucking great.
I was gonna say a 94 or 5. There were things I wasn't quite. Again,
fine, 98. Who cares?
Well, you don't have to agree with me. But all I would say is the only thing that probably would have knocked it is I felt that while the relationship was organic.
Oh, the second half.
Oh, not the second half.
Oh, the second half.
Oh, wait. What do you think about the second half? How's that?
34.
Holy shit!
So bad.
I was giving you a straight 50.
34 for the amount of times they said "Mommy and Daddy," and then they couldn't get rid of her after the first game. They brought her to the second game. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
with that?
They did, dude. And I think what it was is that
and the sister love that's got to go down the fucking tubes, bro.
The reason why I got a 50 from me is because we've talked about it before on the show, where I'm a sucker for animation, and A1 Pictures did a fantastic job animating some of that shit.
100%. God bless you.
Cut that out or not. I don't care. Transparency is the thing here. I want to go back to the original question. Yay or nay? Would you change anything about season 1, part 1, knowing it would dictate the tropes of isekais going forward? Of that part specifically. So I think that's the part that really did the work.
No, I mean, I think you can't give him a personality because he's the strongest person in the whole fucking thing. I don't think you give him a personality in the first part even makes any sense.
Yeah, and I'm also going to say no for a different reason, because as we know, both refining and subversion of tropes are important for evolving any genre.
Good point.
So
phenomenal point.
Thank you.
Stellar point. What did you want to tell people? You told me yesterday at the wedding, you're like, I'm going to tell people that you said that or something.
Oh, I have no idea. If I remember, I'll put it in the sidebar for sure. I'll put it in the sidebar for sure. But what I was going to say was, those tropes existing act as a pivot point, a linchpin for the entire genre, and whether you want to evolve away from that, you want to refine or subvert, and shows like Re:Zero subvert the Kirito OPMC trope, right? And they are like literally platinum in their own right for their subversion of that. So if I were to change anything, it would change the subversions that they would have made. So I really don't think I would have changed anything, because the things I think they would change or should change have shown up in shows already. Misfit, Re:Zero, Slime, other isekais, even Overlord, we just talked about last week. It really does come down to stuff like that. And I think that Sword Art Online Season 1, Part 1 acts as a perfect pillar.
I mean,
going forward.
The first half was great.
Like, it was.
I would love to hear from somebody that thought the first half was terrible.
I think they'll think the romance aspect was the reason why it was terrible. Like,
dude, seriously, the romance didn't happen till like legitimately 70% through the first season.
I think that the show locked a little bit more time and effort on showing the romance, but the way you framed it earlier kind of gave me a new perspective of, they resigned themselves as well. So they're willing to go down to the floor that is livable. And
well, I think it was more of like a opportunity where they were thinking maybe it wouldn't be so bad. I don't think they ever were like, okay, we're never going to do this,
but let's give this a shot.
But I think they're maybe saying like, let's hedge our bets and try to do both.
Okay. Yeah. And from that lens, I could at least understand why they gave it so much time and effort and screen time.
Plus, she's hot, dude.
Plus, Asuma's kind of a babe.
Absolutely a babe.
No big deal. But you know what? Thanks, y'all, for coming to class. I think that's really... I don't even know what time it is.
We are 55 minutes.
That's a great place. That's an awesome place.
It was solid.
Yes. Thank you for coming to class, listening to our SAO rant. We kind of didn't really know what to talk about, and Ethan brought up SAO, and I'm like, bro, I could rip about SAO right now.
100%. It's just so interesting, right? It is a show that is, I think, synonymous with the genre.
It is,
which is like one of the only ones. Though I mean, I guess like DBZ and Battle, Shonen, but it's at that same kind of level where it's synonymous with the genre.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely what has spurred a lot of the Isekai love,
for better or worse.
And your question of why do you think it was such a big deal? I think for that reason, man. People like the fact that, you know, it's gamey. It was one of the first gamey type anime. It was one of the first like
they made it digestible.
Super power fantasies.
Yeah.
I wish there was more battle damage. I like my MCs with like scars all over them.
I like my MCs with scars. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I think Jiraiya's big stomach scar from Naruto was sick.
Oh, the one of the 2 times he almost died.
Yeah.
And one of them being Tsunade punching him in the freaking gourd.
Yeah. Kakashi's eye cut. Sick as fuck.
You gotta like the scars.
But I mean, eye cut.
The fact that Kirito didn't have any was paving the way for something new. Yeah. And that new is the modern isekai we know about today. It's true. I really am I'm here for it. So yeah, thank you all for coming to class. If you want to watch with your eyes and your ears, hello YouTube gang. We still on that shit. I'm actually gonna edit this one tonight because I had nothing to do. And I'm gonna get this done so I don't have to worry about it over the holidays. But if you want to listen with your ears and not your eyes, go anywhere you get your Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, CastBox Fix, all those places I just mentioned, frankly. You should probably go to those places.
Twitter at weebologyp.
I like that name.
Line there, or at our
Instagram?
Gmail.
Or, okay, you do Gmail.
Which is weebologypodcast at gmail.com.
Or you can go to our Instagram at weebology.podcast. We got memes on news and sometimes giveaways. And I did make the t-shirt redesign, but I said last episode I would upload it, and I haven't done it yet.
But now that I'm basically off work, I'll just deal with this.
You're gonna deal with this? Yeah. Help me out with the whole. How do we get this merch to them? I can make the merch. I don't know how to get it to their faces.
Easy.
Okay, you got
so
this.
Easy.
Then that's why we're a fantastic academic team.
Indeed.
Duh. But yeah, write us an email, hit us on our Instagram DMs. Let us know stuff that we want to watch, we should watch, or we're just doing a fantastic job, frankly.
Which I'm sure that's all you want to tell us.
That's pretty much anyone who messages us always tells us how good of a job.
Wow, you guys are so cool.
Yeah. We get that dozens of times a day. Or we will.
Yeah.
We will at some point.
Of course.
Yeah. But until we get all of those obvious compliments, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
And this has been Weebology.
Deuces.
Oh my gosh. I wish I had
You can always buy 2 swords.
We should buy 4 swords. We already have a sword.
Yeah.
We literally have a sword.
I need 1 more sword.
1 sword.